So he went with them. And when they came to the Jordan, they cut down the trees. But as one was felling a log, his axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, "Alas, my master, it was borrowed." Then the man of God said, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in there, and he made the iron head float. And he said, "Take it up." So he reached out his hand and took it. A little background information. This is one of Elisha's 14 miracles. It seems so insignificant and small, an axe head. Okay, so you're chopping down some trees, and the axe head flows into the river. Big deal, right? Insignificant, small. What does it mean? And it's sandwiched in between two major events. Between the healing of an Aramean general, Naaman, and the deliverance of Israel's army. You got two major miracles, and then you've got an axe head that falls into the water. The miracle of the floating axe head is something that has events, it's surrounded by events, big. But isn't that just like God? To come on the scene and show us how much he cares for us. To show us how much he loves us. We've got all this chaos that surrounds us, that abounds. But yet, something so small and insignificant in a worldly perspective, God came down and he moved. Aren't you thankful for that tonight? Can you look back over your life and think, this is small, will God come through? And then you look back and say, wow, even the smallest thing in my life that I needed God, he came through. There's provision. He shows us how much he cares for us. He's always present. He's always there to help us. You know, the love of a parent. I never understood it until I got Daniela. And you understand the love that you have for people and those around you, your students. But how much more God cares for us. It also gives us perspective of Elisha. He had respect of kings. Yet he went back to his students time and time again. He cared for them. He never forgot about the faithful. He never forgot about the importance of his work to care for the human need. He never allowed being in the presence of kings dictate who he was in the presence of his students to the poor. He didn't change. It's also important to note that the sons of the prophets are again students. They sought out Elisha for his instruction, counsel, and prayers. They sought him out. As students following a teacher, they're not working for wages. They're poor. That's something to remember as we talk about this tonight. They didn't have the money to go out and buy the tools, but instead they had to borrow them for the construction and building of what needed to be done, to carry it out. But tonight I'm not going to focus on the miracle of the axe head. We're going to focus on verses 1 through 5. If I had to title this message, it's Alas, Master, it was borrowed. I couldn't get away from alas, Master, it was borrowed. So verse 1, you see, now the sons of the prophet said to Elisha, see, the place where we dwell under your charge is too small. Under your charge. They recognized the headship. There's always order in the kingdom. So they understood the headship is under your charge is too small. The ministry's growing. His prophets in training pointed out that they needed a larger facility. It's okay to point things out as you see the need, but recognize the headship. So the place where they gathered was not large enough to hold everyone. They took the concern to Elisha. There, they did not take matters into their own hands. They didn't go over here and say, hey, this is what we got to do, but we're not going to tell Elisha. No, they took it to him. They gave him the plan of what they thought was best, and then they sought his approval. And he gave it by saying, go. Just as simple as that. They didn't say we need to hire someone. No, they were willing to put in the work to expand the borders of their territory, to make the place larger. They saw the need and they were willing to work. How many can be a witness that when God calls us to do something, it's not easy? There's a work. You got to get your hands dirty. Have you ever been there? Where you wanted to say, I'm going to get so-and-so to do this. I know somebody great. I can get them to do it. But did God call them to do it, or did God call you to do it? So you have to be willing to put forth the work. That might come in the form of dealing with your past. It might come in the form of preparing for something that's never come, or hasn't come yet, having the faith to believe for the impossible. I prepared for kids before I received my first placement. I bought clothes, I bought a bed, and we sat for months. Where's my child? God, where is she? You told me I was going to get a little girl. But there's preparation. There's work to be done. If I hadn't prepared, would God have moved? I don't know. You have to prepare. And if I hadn't prepared, what would that look like when she came and there was nothing? So maybe it's not sitting right in front of you right now. Or maybe you're like the students and you've got to move on it quickly because it's already happened. It's there. But you don't want to move impulsively. You want to make sure you're going in order. So Elisha did not initiate or lead the work of building a new center for the training of prophets, but it could not happen without his approval and without his blessing. We may have plans, but are we taking those plans to the Lord and receiving his blessing and approval to move forward? Like the students did with Elisha. And see, by them going to Elisha and saying, this is what we think needs to happen. Can we do this? Do we have your blessing? It reveals the relationship that they have with Elisha. It'll reveal the relationship that you have with God. They respected his counsel and his instruction. In verse 3, we see that emphasized as one of them said to them, be pleased to go with your servants. And he said, I will go. So not only did they seek his approval, but they wanted him to go to Jordan with them. They wanted to be under his supervision. How many times do we seek God? We ask for his approval, we ask for his blessing, but we don't ask him to go with us. We leave him back here. Okay, you said that, now I've got this. I can do this. All on my own. I am guilty. Time and time and time again with the situations in my life to say, okay, I got your approval, now I'm moving. And I leave God somewhere back here. Don't work out very well. Then I have to backtrack. So how many times, again, do we seek God, but we go in our own supervision? If they had went out to build, but did not ask Elisha to go with them, what would have happened? Who would have been there to help? The axe head flew into the water. Then what? The story would have been very different, right? You see, everything was going great until it wasn't. Isn't that just like life? God is moving, he is doing, he is working, he is providing. Everything's great. They weren't walking in sin. They were walking in the order that God had called them to. They were working for God. God was growing their ministry. But still, things come. Things come our way. Storms come. Satan is there to trip us. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And all I can think about is a lion and how it waits to attack. It watches the moves before they attack. Don't just come out and try to grab the antelope or whatever it's going after. It waits. It seeks. And I can hear the pain and the agony of this student. Alas, master, it was borrowed. I don't read and just say, alas, master, it was borrowed. Okay, cool. No, I can almost physically feel the pain of his cry. You see, it's a great loss. We can go to Walmart and we can pick up an axe. We can buy one on Amazon 2 days later. It's at your front door. We have the money. We have the means. No, they didn't. See, we can't really fathom the loss it was. And before we dive into that loss, I also know that he didn't blame somebody else. didn't say, well, the person that gave it to me, Brother Teddy gave it to me. He should have checked it. Why didn't he check it? He knew this was loose. How dare you? No, he didn't do that. He went straight to the source that could help. Alas, Master, it was borrowed. Are we placing blame on someone else, or are we going straight to the source for help? You know, he could have checked the axe. I don't know anything about cutting down trees and axes back in the day. But was the blade loose? Was the iron loose? Was there split in the wood? I don't know. Did he check? Really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It came off. And he wasn't prepared for it. How could this happen to me? He didn't do that. Time and time again, I think, I'm going to throw myself out here. God, why me? Why did this happen to me? I was serving you. I was leading worship. I was doing what you called me to do. I was a child. Why me? He didn't do that. He said, alas, Master. He went to the source. It was a great loss because he was poor. He could not pay the lender back what it cost to recover that iron axe head. It wasn't readily available. It was expensive. And in that day, borrowing something that you couldn't repay, there was a debt. You were indebted to that lender. He would have been a slave to that lender. He was working for God, and he lost something that he couldn't repay. He took on a debt that he couldn't give back. It was significant. The price it cost to be indebted to someone was so serious. But what does that cost today in comparison to a borrowed axe head? How can we bring that in? A cost that you can't repay. That lies in the free gift of salvation. We can't even come close to being able to repay the debt that washes away our sin. If you forget anything I say, if you forget everything I say tonight, don't forget to count the cost of a debt that you cannot repay. If you don't know Jesus, today is the day. We are living in the end times. We are watching prophecy be fulfilled right before our eyes. How exciting and how scary at the same time. But there are still lost people. There's so many that are lost and dying and on the way to hell. And how we go out of this church and represent Jesus matters. And I'm talking to myself because I'm guilty. How we speak, how we walk, how we talk, how we love others, it matters. And when something bad happens on that journey out, will we be like the student and say, Master, help me, instead of, well, let me get on Amazon, I can fix this. I can do this myself. Reach out to the source and follow the headship. Follow the order as God calls us to move forward. As he calls whatever you are walking into, whether it's corporate or individual, make sure that you are following the headship of God. That you are walking in order with the King. That you are walking step by step. In the last day, people will fall away. Can you see how easily they can be deceived? I never dreamed how easy we could be deceived. But this will confuse you. You watch things that are not of God. Sounds like God. But is it? We've got to be here. We've got to be in the source. Yes. Daily. Yes. We've got to be in the source. So tonight I ask you to think about what God has for you in this season, in this moment, as a corporate church, as a body, and as individuals. What does God have for you in this hour? No matter the age, we all have a plan, a purpose that God has for us. And we need to walk in it. And we don't need to walk away. when those fiery darts come and when those things come that hurt us, where's our shield that Randy talked about last week if you were here? We have to put on the full armor of God. We have to put the shield up. We may have to walk through some hard things. Yes. But we are in the last days, and persecution we've never experienced. Most of us have never experienced it. Most of us have never seen it. So will you go to the source, to the master? He understood when he called out master, it was borrowed. He understood the title. He understood that Elisha could help because Elisha was gaining his power from God. So let's go straight to the source. Let's be plugged in to the source tonight.